Available now from Extremis Publishing. The Grocer's Boy Gets Down to Business by Robert Murray.
Hello, I'm Robbie Murray, and I'd just like to say a few words about my latest book. It's the third book in my series of Grocer's Boy stories, starting from my message boy days, my apprenticeship grocery days, and the years in between. And this takes me to 33 years of my work with a company called Watson & Philip from 1969 until 2002. It's the story of the growth and the busy life as a personnel manager with Watson & Philip, and all the ups and downs during those 33 years, culminating sadly at the end of that, in the end of the company, by no fault of the employees, but just simply by the way things go nowadays in the modern business world, unfortunately. So it's my story. Watson & Philip was a company established in 1873, and the generations of the Philip family saw it through into the 1950s, the 1960s and the 1970s. And eventually the company grew, and to such an extent that and the Philip family was no longer part of the business, and new management came along, and we were doing extremely well. The company was one of the leading UK food distributors and extremely successful. Things turned out quite sadly, in a sense, because in the world of profit, retailing was far more profitable than wholesaling, and fundamentally the business looked set to become a major retail operator. Unfortunately, things didn't quite work out exactly as they ought to have done, and in the end the company folded, sadly. There's still a lot of nostalgia today about the company, and when my book launch comes along on the 31st of May, I already know that there'll be more than several Watson & Philip former employees who'll be there. It'll be quite sad, because it may feel like something between a wake and a reunion, but it's probably the first time a number of Watson & Philip people have been together for over 20 years. So it'll be quite an interesting, emotional day for me. I've dedicated the book to the employees of Watson & Philip. There's still a lot of emotion involved. It's a sad situation when you've been part of a business for 33 years and you've worked closely with colleagues, and then that business is no longer there. There's an empty feeling, and there's emotions from frustration, sadness, perhaps anger as well in some cases. So it's my story of those 33 years, quite what one would call the easygoing 70s into the ultra-competitive 90s. And that same ultra-competitive 90s probably was what brought about the end of the company. A long-established, highly respected company in Dundee, great successes. But the pressures, I would say, of modern business life, particularly when the company in its early stages was a private limited company and then a public limited company from 1968. When that happens, the onus becomes far greater, because then the investors, the city, and the pressures to maintain a growth in profit every year is a seriously harsh driving force. And gone were the days when the business could be determined by the natural growth, the natural sales development, and all the forecasts were made on the basis of a sales projection. But suddenly, into the 80s and 90s, the fierce world of the city and the investors put huge pressure on the company, growing year by year a percentage profit, which ultimately I think when one analyses it, was probably harshly the beginning of the end for the company. There's no particular fingers can be pointed at any individual or groups of individuals in the company. It was a collective drive to improve the company and make the most of the company. The ambitions were laudable, the ambitions were sincere, but in the end, sadly, that brought about the end of the company. So my book, it's all about my 33 years of experiencing the teamwork and the camaraderie and the friendship and the close working colleagues I had during all these years. So it's a mixture of my story inside the story of Watson Phillip.
For more information about The Grocer's Boy Gets Down to Business, please visit the Extremis Publishing website at www.extremispublishing.com.